Well, shalom, greetings, family. No intro videos here just yet. I still need to get around to getting a new Q2UA intro video made. I will try to have that done here by the end of the month as the revamp, the rebuild, the redesign. Well, not redesign, but you know, all the re's. So, shalom, family. Welcome to Q2UA discussions. Q2UA discussions. I know that a lot of our folks here are most definitely battling the snow. If you're in Atlanta, you're battling the snow. If you're in the South, you're battling the cold. Just got through watching the Weather Channel. Paul Goodlow was on there and he's looking at I-75, I-85, and all I could see was just big drops of flurries. And that is still quite something when you realize all that moisture that comes up off the Gulf, and then you just have that bit of freezing. And boy, so Atlanta, those in Atlanta, our brothers and sisters on out there in Atlanta, please be careful. Um, they have Atlanta Metro schools closed this morning. So interesting time. Well, family, I will not be on here this long or that long this morning, probably about an hour or so. This week has been an interesting week that started really, I'm going to say, for me, January 6th was kind of the uneventful day. It was eventful, yet it was uneventful. This week really should have been a lot of eventful weeks with things going on in the Middle East, with threats to Iran or from Iran, threats going on with Israel, or excuse me, that Eastern Mediterranean nation. I didn't say the last syllable, so I don't think the AI, the demon, demon will hurt. The new overlord. Look, I'm telling you, y'all don't even understand the mechanics of their captivity that they're showing you in front of their faces. And the saddest reality is that you have now their folks. What does it say? Curses the nation whose child is a leader, or says whose leader is a child, whose king is a child. And you're starting to see all of these folks that have been propped up by whatever diversion, subversion, who knows, who cares. But to me, it's this: they're getting exactly what has been asked for. And when you see the comments like, you want to take over Greenland, you want to take over Mexico, Panama Canal, those are the traits of the expansionisms that will inevitably occur before the demise of that nation, kingdom, or empire. And we have seen these tragic, very tragic, examples in the past. Understand, folks had to live through these changes. Folks had to live through these times. You know, when Q2A first started almost 2 years ago, there was a draw in our spirits to say, you know what? The time to go is now. The time to do is now. The time to work is now. Look, the ground had to be broken and the seed had to be planted. And during that time, the Most High always goes through a sifting process every single time. We get sifted. Who's for the Most High and who's for whatever. That's the natural occurrence. Because why? Because we've been living in this captivity. Do you think that and I always look at these exercises and I just do these types of logic exercises. If something is truly of the most high, do you realize how it's really not supported? It's not going to be conventionally supported. If it's truly the most high actually doing the move. You want to know what ends up happening? Folks see it happening, folks see it occurring, and then when it explodes, then when it manifests into something bigger than what they could even imagine, then guess what? Then here comes everybody jumping on the bandwagon. That's what happens. And that is getting ready to happen because it's not just happening with Q2A. That's now happening with the Hebrew community, the Israelite community. And I would say with the Israelite community that has a bit of understanding, especially of the scriptures. I'm going to tell you this. Um, and I'm probably going into my Covenant Awakenings cat, but I'm going to tell you this. Do we really need to yell at people? I mean, let me ask you this: how effective is it to yell at somebody to get your point across? How effective is it to have contention with someone to get your point across? You know, the contention is this in this awakening. We never had to yell at them. We never had to badmouth or say anything or do anything because what did the Most High said? Look, the way that you treat them in love is always a what? A lump of coal that is in their lap. But you want to know what, Father? I want to just be in my flesh. Then guess what? Be in your flesh and stare at what's happening in California right now. Stare at what's happening in California right now. Stare and see what's happening to the countless amounts of videos on this platform, YouTube, right now. I'm going to tell you this. We do not have to be in our flesh. All we have to do is be about our Father's business and promote the kingdom Because why? Because he has everything else in order. The African diaspora's influence, however you want to call it, for the sake of this channel as a 501c3, for the Yahudine's influence, the Yahudi, as has been historically recognized in different publications. Our enslavement has as historically recognized through slavevoyages.org, sponsored by the state of Virginia, sponsored by other Library of Congress resources. I have to preface all this. It's the legalese, because you all know why, family? Because now they're burning mad. Well, well, they're burning. Sorry, I know that may have been a bit tasteless. But they are burning and they are mad and they are becoming more and more destabilized. And that is actually politically driven. We have seen quite a few declarations of the tit for tat. Because understand, this is their plan. Their plan is to rescue this place no matter what. Because why? This is their heaven. I've said this countless times on my channel, my platform, Covenant Awakenings, and I've said it here. This is their heaven. And now they're trying to manage their heaven because their heaven is running out of the resources to be their heaven, because the moment that you realize and that you're seeing that if they don't have any resources, then their heaven becomes a hell. A hell on earth. And if you don't see what's happening on out there in Los Angeles, then I don't know what that wake up call looks like for both those that profess that they're Israelites and those that are Gentiles. This is their valley of decision moment. Will they repent? And, the scripture tells us the answer is no, but it also tells us that there are those that see and are taking heed and are trying to figure out what happens next. Have we been right this whole time? Are we say have we been saying things? Yeah, the method of delivery has been, we're working on it. Please give us grace. We're working on it. We're fine tuning it. We had to get out of our feelings. We had to get out of our temper tantrum. I look at it as though we had been beaten out of our sleep. We got beaten out of our sleep, and we started to run around, throw things, get mad, because number one, you get unsettled, getting shaken out of your sleep. Number two, when you have that pain on you, especially after you had been violently awakened, your mind is frizzled. And when you come on in here, please give this a like, family, and please share in the community. We want to beat the algorithm. If you didn't know what the algorithm is, it's a demon. We've been trying to tell you. Shout out to Brother Yakoba. We've been trying to tell y'all. See, they were in the background socially engineering. Yes, 1619 brew. We have been through social engineering, and it's all started since we got on out of here. And yes, for your name's sake, 1619. Help us, and that's a better tomorrow. Help us, and you'll get rights. And you know what? Here's the crazy thing. In 1619, they did. They were doing the indentured servitude kick because why? And people don't like to understand everything here is a marketing scheme. Marketing. Do you know one of the biggest industries in business besides now AI? And now they're doing AI for what? Marketing. Because now they got to market things. And do you know who the biggest marketing consumer that there has been here in the United States, who they marketed to the most, has been us? Well, why is that, Brother Karras? Because when we got off of those ships, when our forefathers got off of those ships at Point Comfort, over there in Hampton Roads, Newport News, do you think that they were treated like the chattel? Or do you think that they say, hey, we have this person here, we have this person there, right? They're paying for what? Services and time. See, everything becomes sophisticated and everything becomes exposed at the end. It just takes time. It takes time to realize what that exposure looks like. It takes time for people to show what it is that their true nature and their true intent. Because why? Hey, 1619. Hey, come on over. You work. I'll give you something. Because hey, we're here. We're God fearing people. We're not trying to own slaves like that. We're trying to build a community. We're trying to build here. And guess what? When you help us build after a few years, guess what? You'll have your freedom. Because why? Because that's the same thing that they do with the boule. You establish the pattern. See, you can make it. See, you can make it. If they made it, you can make it. If they have millionaires, you have millionaires. If they have Hollywood actors that have millions of dollars in mansions, you can be a millionaire. Everybody can be a millionaire. Isn't that right? I laugh because I see that. That is one of the biggest things that I see everywhere. I'm sorry. I know folks have the secrets and the tips. This is how you can be a millionaire. This is how you can be wealthy. And if you understand that the premise is you're building your millionaire status and your wealth status off of blood. That doesn't sound very good, does it? You could be a millionaire because guess what? As long as you believe in the dream of genocide, of debt enslavement practices, policies, and laws, and other works of debasing a culture, a people, in a group, and allowing for alternative lifestyles to be placed on them to knowingly decimate the population group and promote pestilence. You could be a millionaire too. Do you want to be a millionaire? If you didn't understand, that is what that dollar represents. It is the dollars that we need to pay our bills, the dollars that we need to go online. And unfortunately, we are trapped in that game. Each and every one of us. We've seen what's happened in Gaza. We've seen what's happened in all these other places and countries that we have gone into. We've seen the desolation that has been done. You've seen and have witnessed the hammer of the whole world because of why? Because of a narrative that has been marketed. Because why? Because they marketed the same narrative to us. 1619, you get off the boat. Guess what? You work, and guess what? When you work, you can be in the roles, and then you've been in the roles. We'll treat you like this, and treat you can even buy stuff. You're just another regular Virginian, and that model worked. It worked, and I'm going to tell you, it probably worked for it worked for definitely 2 decades. Because in 1641, when they started to see that the model was very successful, and then they saw that, oh, okay, these black folks are very enterprising, and yeah, if we don't control them, they're gonna outpace us. I'm not making this up. This is in their laws. This is in their history books. This is why they don't like to teach their history. Remember CRT? They don't like to treat the history. They don't like to teach you history. And that is the most dangerous thing. If you realize that they were not going to, they were going to retract history, understand who the ultimate target was. Who was the ultimate target for? Because understand, they were thinking that, well, we're just stuck here. We've been stuck here for 400 years. So what's going to change? We've been stuck here in the same predicament, the same condition. So what is going to change? And I want to address the idea of being rich and the idea of wealth. It's two different things. People want to be rich over the detriment of not having to be poor and putting people in the same conditions of being poor so they can maintain being rich, right? That's how what the wealthy or the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer. That is a social dynamic. Being wealthy is actually a mental dynamic. You could be as wealthy as you believe yourself to be. And here's the thing, what do they always say? Look, we have a wealth of knowledge, we have a wealth of culture, we have a rich culture, right? They'll always say that. You want to know what they really don't say about themselves? They don't really have a rich culture. They may have a wealth of knowledge because of how that knowledge has been acquired and how that knowledge has been then retained. I would say attained. Because a lot of the practices that they use in the universities, a lot of the business practices that they have used, guess what? They learned from us. You want to know why things took a little bit of time to really revamp stuff in the South? Is because those folks that had been the bookkeepers, the technical staff, all that other good stuff that was working for free, the inventors and everybody else that was working on that plantation, guess what happened? They left. And when they left, they went to do their own thing. And when they did their own thing, guess what they were doing? They were getting deleted. And in order for them to do what they were doing to invent and innovate, guess what they had to go to? They had to go to places like Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, DuPont, and all of these other rich folks that had money but did not have a wealth of knowledge. They may have been knowledgeable of how to maintain and manage that knowledge, but the wealth of the knowledge wasn't there. They and I would argue that's the same thing that's happening right now. This is why with the advent of AI and everything else, all they're trying to do is capture the knowledge and then be able to uh, uh, have a control on who's able to access that knowledge. Have you seen that now? Have you seen that there's a lot of things that have been taken off the internet? Have you seen that there's a lot of things that are now behind paywalls? Because why? Because, well, we were just getting way too much knowledge and understanding. And in order for us to attain that, guess what? You're going to have to pay some money. You're going to have to pay a subscription. You're going to have to pay a one time use. So understand that our influence was through the ability to understand the knowledge that we had at our fingertips. And I said that we had, yes, that we had, because the ongoing effort has been to reduce the knowledge. Why do you think there's an effort to get all these games, to get all these programmings, to have people distracted? And they had folks distracted. This very first full calendar week here in the United States, the lid got blown off on a couple different things. And let me tell you, now the nations of this world are truly wondering about the United States. Wait a second. Why does the US want to go into Mexico and Canada? You want to know why? Because they lost Cuba. It's a panic. They have a neighbor that's less than 100 miles from the territorial waters of the United States. That's less than 100 miles from literally territorial land of the United States that has joined BRICS Alliance. And you also had Mexico, don't get this forgotten. Please do not forget this. Mexico had also expressed an interest in joining BRICS. So why do you think that they want to invade Mexico? Because if you now have a a BRICS influenced by water, and then you have your neighbor that is a BRICS member that's right on your southern border, then that's a problem. Because understand, as much as they don't want the illegal aliens coming in, oh, they want some other products under the table coming in that is, you know, discreet. It's kind of quote illegal, but we will forego that. It's kind of out of our nation's policy, but keep the fentanyl coming, keep the cocaine coming, keep those things coming. So now we're seeing a lot of the really it's the hypocrisy that is showing up. Arriving at this time, we are now looking at some things that's not really exclusive. to just the empirical policy that they're trying to have in North America. Now, folks are beginning to understand this has been an empirical policy that has been going on around the world. Because if that's been the case, then what proxies, what arms, what elements have been used to maintain US hegemony? And now, look, I told you, European countries, they'll play the game to the extent of the benefit. I said this about 2, 3 years ago. Europe will play the game to the extent of the benefit. This is why they didn't mind. Okay, well, if we have to be far right, whatever. At least we get paid from it. If we got to be labeled like this, whatever, at least we'll get paid from it. Look, they didn't mind that. Not a large majority of Europeans agree with the way that the United States treats us, and especially the African nations. And let me tell you this. You want to know when that happened, that divergence started? That happened in 2017. That divergence started in 2017 because I remember, just like it was yesterday, when Trump had said the S-hole countries, and he was talking about Africa. And the European nations complained. And I can tell you, he probably received so many phone calls and things of that nature that within what, 72 hours, the then Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, an oil mogul or tycoon that was not in any way the least qualified. I mean, I'll give it to Trump this time around with at least Marco Rubio. I can say that he's, in my eyes, in my opinion, I can say that with his body of work and what he had done, he's at least qualified for his position. The other folks, okay. You got a Fox News anchor as the incoming Secretary of Defense. That's going to be horribly wrong. That's going to go horribly wrong. All I can see is just the cringe factor because here's the thing. That policy pick isn't for maintaining relationships around the world. Do you get what I'm telling you? That's, in those particular, in that instrumentation, right? And that um and how he was trying to build up his cabinet. It wasn't for global, political um messaging of, hey, we're trying to be willing and able partners, alliances, all of the things that they always like to hear. Oh, well, they're a partner of ours, they're an alliance. Yeah, that's good. You know, don't get it misconstrued. You had the picks. I would say Rubio is a little bit, he's a little bit manageable, in my opinion. Just a little bit more manageable. Not too far off, but I think he's a little more practical. So he has that political international base. But with the Secretary of Defense, that's the number, after the Secretary of State is the Secretary of Defense, and, you know, then you have a pecking order of, how you're ranking in the cabinet. To me, the Secretary of Defense, that was yeah, J0, the political yes man. Hey, I got dirt on you. You can't really do anything. Look, if it was a Congress or a Senate that wasn't controlled by Republicans, um, now they wouldn't have gotten um, that position would have gotten confirmed. But the reason, in my opinion, the reason why we see this is that, the grand plan, and I believe that we're seeing the grand plan playing on out right in front of our eyes with what we're seeing in California. The grand plan is it's not for an international relationship, an international strategic alliance. I think, to me, those days are done. And that's the pullback that I believe, in my opinion, the European nations have been asking for, because, they're trying to distance themselves from the United States, but they're trying to act like the United States, especially with Macron. And all he's been doing is he's been putting his foot in his mouth. And he has been trashing Africa for doing what? For thinking about their disposition and thinking about what it is that had been marketed to them. You can be like this if you support the West. Wait a second. Why do I need to just send my materials, my resources on over to you all willy nilly for pennies on the dollar, for darn near free? Nobody wants to work for free, especially when that free does not benefit them and whatsoever. You know what that's called? That's called slavery. And now you see Ibrahim Traore, a man that has been marked by the West. My man is Steven Seagal of Burkina Faso, because he's been marked for deletion. But he's been hard to kill or hard to delete. And that's nothing but the Most High's favor on him in this time, because no plans that they have been succeeding. They've all failed. They have all failed. They're throwing millions of dollars for these folks, and they're like, you know what? That's not even worth it. You want to know why millions of dollars isn't worth it? Because there's billions, almost trillions of dollars under my feet. And y'all done stole trillions of dollars. So you want to give us a piddly quarter? Here's 25 cents. Make a thing happen. Nah, man. That just shows the lack of respect that they have. And now here we have, in this time, this situation that has been depleting Europe and the West. See, understand, it has always been about our influence, whether you're here in the United States, whether you're in the Caribbean, whether you're in Europe, South America, Look, do you want to know how much of an influence Brazil has. Brazil are Portuguese derivative speaking brothers and sisters in South America. They have pull on the continent through their dribbling skills with their feet. They have an influence in the ways and the mannerisms. That here's the thing, we all benefit and we all complement one another. That's why we were separated from one another. Our influence on the continent is making waves and ripples. And I'm not going to say waves, they're actually tsunamis. And I believe, just my opinion, that this year you're going to start to see Africa rising more and more and more, because I talk about in my book. Hallelujah. I thank the Most High that He allowed me to write that book because it was very poignant. Because they're going to control their resources. And guess what? Now all these nations realize, you know what? I needed to control my resources a while ago. And look, they can't hide it. This is how they really feel. And now, if they understand how they really feel, then guess what's going to happen? Well, there needs to be another influence campaign on the diaspora to have a negative outlook on the continent. That's why folks like, some prominent African American African Americans within the community, adjacent to the community, that have had movies and other media, have spoken negatively about the continent while you literally have a nation in decline, a nation that is in economic decline. And, you know, again, with Garth and I going to Burkina Faso, yeah, truthfully speaking, the nation was beginning to come up because it takes a little bit, especially if you've never known how to manage yourself. The call out was for help from their diaspora brethren. Whether your bloodline goes back to Burkina Faso, and to me, I still believe that that's kind of a false positive because you never know. Our blood was so nomadic and sporadic over in that area because why? We were kind of constantly moving for periods of time. But I look at the intent. The intent was they needed our help, and they still need our help, and they're still asking for our help. But I'm telling you, with the with who is in the community, it has truly been a work of the Most High to do a lot of the pre-screening that He has done to be able to ensure that his purpose is fulfilled and not someone else's agenda, but his purpose. And let me tell you, family, I have to take my hat off to our brothers and sisters in Burkina Faso because they know, they told us, we want to make sure we get this right. They understood it. Look, if we slow roll it, that's not our intent. But we got to make sure we get everything right. We got to make sure we plan everything. We got to make sure because you want to know why? Because they knew that the whole world was looking at them. They knew their influence on the African continent. And here's the thing that we're trying to recognize within ourselves, the influence that we have, not just on the African continent, but the influence that we have on the world. See, when you've been belittled, when you've been told your knowledge doesn't matter, your input doesn't matter, right? But then they want to constantly see what you're doing, right? They want to constantly monitor. You talk about monitoring spirit. Oh, we've been under the biggest monitoring spirit since our forefathers got here. What are you doing? How's this going? What is it? What is it? What is it? I want to be involved. If I'm not being involved, you are reverse racism? Scratch my head. Can we heal? No. Can we work within ourselves as a family, as our brothers and sisters? No. Can we do things without interference? No. Can we at least even work within their legal parameters without being interfered on and have full transparency? No. Because we did not get what it was that they were trying to market. They tried to market that we had all of this and all of that through their Boule sponsored, inspired folks to show the world a false picture. To show us a false picture. Actually, matter of fact, they didn't even care about showing us a false picture. We already knew it was a false picture. But that was okay because here's the thing, we were not the intended audience. So even if we said, hey, that's a false picture, that's a false narrative, hey, this is what's going on, let's do George Floyd and then let's co-opt what was going on with George Floyd with our folks. Because why? Because now it has been the circle of trust is broken. Who can they trust? They can't trust anybody. Look at this. Look how easy we're able to infiltrate. Look how easy it is to throw a few dollars around. To have organizations collapse from within. Oh yeah, they were going to do some real damage. They were going to do some real things, but we already had, these other agendas working and moving and being exposed within that organization. And they did what we needed them to do. They caused derision, confusion, lack of trust, skepticism, all this good stuff. Because they could have been able to get over it if they had prayed and asked the Most High for spiritual discernment and asked the Most High to give them understanding of who was causing it, no matter how silvery that tongue was, how much honey was laid on the lips of that wicked person was. Nah, they wanted to be in their flesh. Man, let me just get in my flesh. Let me just get into this thing. Let me just get into that thing. Oh man. Because that's how they've been able to win. If you didn't know that, what's the biggest mouthpiece in the black community? It happens to be through churches. They've weaponized our relationship with the Most High to control our people. That's sad. And now here's a day that's coming for them. They've the powers that be has weaponized their pride and vanity against them. Let's figure out why our nation's in decline. Let's figure out what we have done. Can we atone? Can we see what we need to do to make things right to move forward? David had to get rid of some folks from Saul's family members to appease the Most High for Saul killing, deleting a priest of the Most High. And that had caused desolation in Israel. I'm just saying, we all have to purge ourselves. Father, what was it that I was unclean about? And how did I do this? And, they don't want to look internally. So now they're going to look towards their own folly. That's what's happening right now. Because understandably, they're losing their influence on us. Because now they just can't have a blanket scripture, you know, of slaves obey your masters. Well, let's look. Let's read a little bit more into that. Because what are y'all supposed to do too? Oh no, there's a requirement for you all. Oh man, that's why I told you. You give them the foundation, they shy away. The same tool that they used on us is the same tool that is literally breaking them as we speak right now today. You want to lecture us, but you can't even compare. So now understand this level of hypocrisy has now surpassed their ability to manage. They can't manage. And what you see, I don't care how you look at things over in the fire, it just shows mismanagement. Hey, how did you even allow for these wicked schemes to happen? If folks have a conspiracy, this conspiracy, that. Well, here's the thing, trace it back. Trace it back. Audit. Who was responsible for this? Who was responsible for that? How come it didn't get done? How come it didn't? But now you understand this is part of the curses. Because now the curses is going back on them to now, instead of coming together, now they're falling apart. They're falling apart at the seams. Yeah, Trump is right. It's that new scum's fault. Okay. Do you know what Trump did? What he violated? You want to know what Trump violated? And this is what has been the violation in these last 30 days. They're violating the sovereign principle of the nobility and dietetical positioning of white people in society. And now he just violated the last vestige, and that was the authority of a white man being criticized and questioned in the open via a social media platform. Now you have to understand the gauntlets are being thrown down. Because now, why? Now the marketing is this. I know for the Gentiles up in here, I just want you to understand because if we're seeing it, obviously the world is seeing it. The strategical reliance and position of white supremacy is no longer as strong as it used to be because the authority of white supremacy has literally just been challenged by a white person. Satan has rose against Satan, and guess what? How can a house stand if it's divided? How can a house stand if it's divided? You're seeing a division. And, is this division a setup? Who knows? Who knows? But now you have a division that's occurring in California right now that the world has a spotlight on, and now there is a white man being blamed. And I even look, they tried to even blame the mayor. Do you know they were trying to do that a couple of days ago? They were trying to blame the California mayor because she's a Hebrew sister, I believe, an Israelite sister of blood. And what Trump did was that Trump actually challenged the system of white supremacy. We didn't. He did. What we were doing was just telling you, look, there's a system of white supremacy. And when you're dealing with vanity, guess what? Vanity always turns on itself because the blind leads the blind. And guess what they do? They both fall in the pit because when you're in a place of vanity, guess what you don't do? You're not humble. You're not looking for humility. You're not looking for meekness. There's selfishness. And if a selfish person gets called out by another selfish person, and guess what? The insults and the barbs will be traded. And guess what's going to start to happen? The insults and the barbs are going to start to trade. And then now you have more political unrest is going to turn into more civil unrest. Because now understand this nation as a spiritual principality. This nation is literally going through spiritual multiple sclerosis, MS, The foot doesn't want to respond to the hand doesn't want to respond to the ear, the leg is all out of whack, it can't walk. Because if you're not able to walk, pretty soon you have to be assisted. If you can't be assisted, pretty soon you're going to have to be in that wheelchair. If you can't even get around with the wheelchair, guess what? You will be bedridden. And when you're bedridden, guess what? All of your nervous system functions will shut down. And then that's when you are expired. Why is that? Because the marketing apparatus that had been used on us is no longer working. Don't you want to vote? Vote, 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 and vote. And what did we do? What did we say? We said this. You know what? Even if we didn't even know that we're Israelites, even if we didn't even have any type of a spiritual understanding or more or less a biblical understanding, you know what people started to realize? Why am I going to put my authority into someone, into something that doesn't care? Why am I going to vote for my own self deletion? And I believe that our voter participation rate was, I'm going to say this, I believe that it was probably 70 to 80%. That was more than likely our voter participation rate in this last election. I'm gonna go out on the limb. We didn't meet that threshold. We didn't meet that spiritual majority. And because we didn't meet that spiritual majority, now they're trying to figure out how do they then reorganize. Because I always believe that they're trying to not just make a case to the international community, but I believe that they always try to make a case to the Most High. Look, look, they don't even want you. They want our rule. They still want our authority. See, look. And what has that done? Do you know what that done? That rejection shows the whole world. If we rejected them, then what do you think? That's a bitter pill to swallow. If the people that they've held in derision, if the people that they took as captives, if their victuals are saying, no, we're done with this. If they're understanding that they no longer want to participate in the madness, then what that does is that's showing the nations. And I'm going to say that's showing the nations, particularly Europe. Oh, your Negroes are out of control. And if your Negroes are out of control, then our Negroes will be out of control. And if our Negroes are out of control, then that becomes economically destabilizing. And if I'm economically destabilized, then guess what? I'm going to be freezing this winter. And if I have to freeze this winter, because your economy is not going to be able to bring in the tankers in less than a week, potentially, with this upcoming renewed port strike. I said that earlier this week. I said we'll see what happens to cradle us on over to this event, and to be honest, that could potentially be the port strike because one of your largest West Coast seaports is now in an area where wildfires are happening. I looked, and there was a news story that the pipeline from basically LA to Las Vegas, that gas pipeline had been cut off because of the fire risk. So now Las Vegas potentially has a problem. And I definitely understand I can definitely empathize. I had to deal with that this day 3 months ago. This day, 3 months ago. So imagine you have medical emergencies and things that happen that's creeping on up, and you don't have the basics for even filling up your gas tank. And that's just not you. Guess what's happening? That's everyone else. Then the question is, how long will these gas pipelines, how long will they be shut down? And then on top of that, when those gas pipelines get shut down, then what happens when gas that's being imported or gas that's being exported? Well, they need to have money to run. So if you don't have money to run, then you can't pay your people to do what? To fill the storage tanks. And if your storage tank operations aren't going on, then guess what? Then people are not driving. If people aren't driving, your economy's at a standstill. What happens when your economy's at a standstill? Are you just going to sit there? Oh man, you will sit there. You'll sit there for at least 3 days before you start to go and figure things on out. Before you start to run out of food. They said that their water, they're now on boil notices, and they've actually been alerted because of the amount of chemicals that's in the air that's gone into the water supply. Yeah, they said that they shut down that pipeline, I think like a couple days ago. But, folks are just figuring on out that they shut it on down because, this is now a prolonged period of time. So if you knew that they were shut down, then why didn't you let people know that earlier? And then they said, don't panic. And when they say don't panic, man, that's the time to panic because guess what? I had that happen when it was don't panic. I got stuck here in a hurricane. I got stuck here. Brother Karras, how come you never left? Because I have kids. And it's hard to convince your kid's mother, the ex. Oh, you're just talking crazy. It's that Hebrew stuff. Imagine if they don't have the warning next time. That's the Most High's grace that was there in California. That was the Most High's grace to allow them to signal to their people that they need to leave. That was the Most High's grace. Because there's going to be times to where, guess what? Our spiritual spidey senses through the Ruach is going to say, You need to go and you need to go now. That's going to be for some of our people. Will that be for all of our people? I'm not sure because I don't think that there's going to be that drastic. There may be areas of that's going to be drastic, and there may be areas of, hey, there's a warning. It just depends on how the Most High works. So now I have to understand, okay, for the righteous to be saved, there may be some alert. If that doesn't happen, what happens if there is a cyber attack? And then they say, there you go. And I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to tell you this. The reason that I believe, this is my personal opinion, the reason I believe that this wasn't a outside source and things of that nature and yada yada yada, because you got to remember what the scripture says. Babylon says that, look, she'll never see the loss of her children. Babylon doesn't want any of her children to go. If this was an adversary or an adversarial attack, then I believe the first thing that they would have done is they would have shut down communications. Shut it all down. Nobody's communicating. How much confusion would that happen? Because then in the midst of confusion, then you would have had really all hell breaking more loose. Surprising telecom systems didn't go down. Surprising telecom systems didn't get hacked. I mean, can we see this now? Surprising cell phone services didn't go down. You're still able to get an emergency alert text. I'm just saying. And you already know that America's enemies have the propensity and capabilities to do that. We've seen that time and time again. But if I'm an enemy of the United States, I would have been like, okay, let me just see what plays on out. I don't even have to do anything. They're going to tear themselves apart with this occurrence. Such and such and such and such. And here we go. What does that mean? That means that everything in terms of building materials and things of that nature is going to go up. When people say that this is the Black Swan event, I'm kind of like, I don't know, maybe. But then I have to think, maybe it is. Because this is going to have an economic ripple, an impact. You've had a couple of natural disasters. Man, when they said the Great Chicago Fire and I saw the Pacific Palisades, just the Pacific Palisades. Yeah, that sucker's gone. I was watching a person on YouTube, and he had his little e-bike, and he was going through the neighborhoods of Altadena, Pasadena, over towards the mountains, and he was just seeing the chaos unfold. And family, pray for our family there in LA. Pray that the Most High saves them in Goshen, because they can't get a handle on these fires, and these fires are continuing to go because now it's their people. It's their people that are the spoilers. Is this not Jeremiah 50:51? I'm just saying. Did we not just read Jeremiah 50:51? I'm like, oh my goodness. Well, Father, it's your word. And guess what? Your word never comes back void. Hallelujah. Now you're starting to see March 10th. Shout out, Brother Yakoba. Now you're starting to see what that CBDC is going to look like, because why? Well, today is Friday, March 10th. Or excuse me, January 10th. What will March look like? What will happen in 60 days? Well, me, I look at this. They're giving you a black, giving you a destruction on that is, totally major. I would actually this if you are a sovereign, you are a sovereign state, an incoming president that may not even be able to provide. Because remember, FEMA got ran through with North Carolina and Florida, and now you have this disaster. They were trying to not have a disaster occur. Remember, they were trying to say, look, as long as we don't have it occur within another, they gave the project like 5-6 months, and then they had a disaster occur. And in my opinion, that disaster was way worse than any type of military intervention. That looked worse than what you would have if a nuclear weapon had been detonated. I'm sorry. That was worse than a nuclear weapon detonating. And what has gone on in the last, now, not even what, January 7th, 96 hours? Look, they were already running low on building materials. And now you have this thing going on in the East Coast. The West Coast is going to be affected. Long Beach. This to me is a disaster in the making. And I say it's a disaster in the making because of the long term consequences of destabilization. And, with what's happening in Chad right now with France, it's kind of like, look, this place is reaping what it's sowing, no matter how much they try to have a hidden hand through their other country proxies. They can deny as much as they want, deny, deny, deny. Guess what? It's the Most High that passes judgment. That's who I'd be fearful of. I'd be fearful of the Most High passing judgment. Because imagine what this looks like. See, family, I look at it like this. Aren't you glad that our brothers and sisters on the continent, aren't you glad that the Most High is rekindling our relationship with our family on the continent right now? I don't know about you all, but boy, that's a relief. That signals a relief. Look how the Most High has already planned for us, has already made a way for us. Because it's his timing that's perfect. See, our influence has already touched the continent. And as our influence had touched the continent, there are different projects that are going on right now that's only making ways for us to get there and to open the doors for us to be a much bigger influence. Oh yeah, even the planes. Come on now, they're not going to do anything. It makes it looks cool because why? It's a marketing effort. As long as you think that that plane works, hey, that's all they care about. That's all they care about. See, we got our planes going in the sky. Well, how effective are they? Can you give us rate or some data? Can you give us numbers? Yeah, they're very effective. And then more stuff is burning. I don't know. To me, I don't know. That to me is, it may be a rural environment and maybe a an environment where you do have um a lot of forest and forestry, right? But what does that do in an environment that's an urban environment? And everything in an urban environment is literally a propellant. Everything in an urban environment is literally flammable because of all the chemicals, the man-made chemicals that are there. I would say, for PR sakes, yeah, that okay. I'll buy it for PR sakes. For effectiveness, I don't buy it. That's just my calculation. Because why? Because what they're trying to do is prevent widespread panic and chaos. That's what they're trying to prevent. Because let me tell you, you now already have you're already in a time where we have major economic issues. You have people that are desperate. Okay, if people have to now be managed with a fire and fires going on, then what's going to stop people from looting stores? You want to know what's going to happen? That's going to happen next. That's easy. That's an easy call out. That's going to happen next. Probably tonight and tomorrow. They're not up yet. It's still 5:56 in Cali. They're not up yet. Because people are going to be going and rushing home and staying, air quality bad, trying to do some smash and grabs. That's an easy calculus on my part. And I'm not saying to engage. Please don't engage. I'm not promoting that. I'm not. But I'm just stating the facts in terms of the lawlessness that will be ensuing in a greater capacity. And I don't care how much police presence that you have here, because then what will end up happening is you'll start having people just start fires, throwing some Molotov cocktails to do what? To allow for more looting. These are usually how these great fires happen in different several cities. Seattle and all these other places that has happened here in the United States. Because why? People get desperate. They see that resources are stretched, and then it's like, all right, whatever. People just, the authority just gives up, and then pretty soon everything's on fire. So 96 hours, folks are getting fatigued. Yeah, you can bring in the National Guard, but that won't really do anything. When you bring in the National Guard, it's to me is it's over because they really won't know the community that well anyway. So, and you had these are the pain points of desperation. It's going to be interesting, family. It'll be interesting. But family, that's all I have. Brother Garth will be on at 10 a.m. to highlight a lot of the things that's happening in the continent, especially the latest coup attempt in Chad. A French calling card of sorts. So thank you, family, for your support to the mission of Q2UA. Continue to keep us in your prayers. Please sign up to volunteer. And family, if things don't go crazy, most high willing, not too crazy, you'll see me back here on Monday as we'll talk about the special report because something's going to go crazy. There's already a couple things that were slated to go down. Hallelujah. So, with that said, family, you all have a blessed day. Shalom and salama to all of those. Let's lift each other up in prayer and continue to be a light to the nations. Hallelujah. So, with that, family, be blessed.